Joining me now is Tim Irvin, Senior Account Manager with Camamck Retirement Group. Tim, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate the time.
Now, I know in your background and experience, you've worked a lot with all different types of retirement plans, corporate retirement plans, and now healthcare and university retirement plans. What are some of the key differences that you see with regards to 401k versus 403b retirement plans?
Sure, that's a great question, Jeff. I think at a high level, what we see in the marketplace right now is that the 401k world is a bit ahead of the 403b world. A couple of the key differences, I think when you look at investments, the ability on the 401k side and the corporate side for them to use things like ETF investments, collective investment trusts to lower fees, that's a difference in the streamlined array. I think we do see a lower number of investment options in the 401k world. Additionally, a lot of the contractual language in the 403b world we've seen change, but a lot of those contracts when they were written were individual contracts. So if I were a plan participant, I would go in, select a provider, and then I would pick my investments, but the contract was between myself and the record keeper. That sometimes limits the liquidity and the availability to make different choices as a plan sponsor. And then additionally, I think we see cost. I think we're seeing a movement in the 403b world towards cost compression, but a lot of those contracts were, again, individual or annuity contracts, and they were laden with high fees.
And it really is a function of maturity. The 401k market obviously has a lot more governance around the retirement plans, the investments, et cetera. It's relatively new for 403b plans, is it not? And you're really working a lot with plan sponsors and employers to establish those governance processes.
Absolutely. I think it is new to the not-for-profit and 403b space. We saw some of the legislation that was passed down starting to place the committees in a position where there is fiduciary responsibility, something they weren't necessarily monitoring in the past, and then additionally the fee disclosure. So I think we did see a lot of the plan sponsors and committees and task forces have to evaluate plan fees, and with that start to not only monitor the providers but also the investments as well.
I know that having worked with you, that collaboration is an important concept that you always really espouse and articulate to clients. Talk a little bit about how you collaborate not only with the employer, but the record keeper, the asset manager, maybe other interested third parties in terms of how you deliver services to your client.
Sure. We serve in my eyes as a bit of a liaison between all different parties. So obviously we work with investment providers as well as the record keepers and then the committees. And I think part of our job is not necessarily making decisions. We sign on for our clients as a co-fiduciary, so we additionally play a role in that, but we want to arm them with the information to make the right decision. So not just putting the decision in front of them and walking them through it, but providing all of the different options, providing pros and cons to each of those options, and having them make the decision that best fits their particular plan.
In terms of changing gears a little bit, in terms of investments, I mean, I know you kind of cover both for the firm. You handle consulting, but you also handle investments. Some of the trends that you're seeing in your conversations with clients around perhaps fixed income, equities, the market volatility, things that you are talking about?
Sure. So I think particularly in the 403b space, what we're seeing now is an effort to consolidate. As we spoke to earlier, when you have multi-vendor and across those different vendors, there may be 5 or 6 providers, and then each of them has 80, 90 funds. I think it's very difficult as a committee or as a plan sponsor with fiduciary responsibility to monitor that many investments. So what we're seeing to some extent now is consolidation as they start to recognize that there's a fiduciary responsibility to monitor those funds, and they're trying to figure out a way to do that best. In particular, we are seeing a movement away from the 80 or 90 funds that are proprietary to the record keeper to different providers underneath that record keeper, and anywhere in the range from 20 to 30 investment options. And when you talk about flow and where those contributions are going, what we are seeing is a movement towards target date funds in particular. I think that is the participants recognize that there's a set it and forget it mentality to that fund. They don't have to necessarily make all the investment decisions themselves, and I think that's appealing as a plan participant.
And I know you pride yourself obviously on collaboration, leading a client from point A to point Z and all points in between, but you also incorporate discussions and conversations around communications and education. And we just had on Dr. Shlomo Benarchi talking about behavioral finance and how to apply those principles. How are you applying those principles to your clients at Camamck?
I think we have to look at and evaluate the plan from a lot of different perspectives. First of all, plan design, and Dr. Shlomo Benarchi mentioned auto-enrollment and things like auto-escalation, auto-features. I think that's going to help move the needle and push participants to enter the plan, and then from there they can make adjustments as they move forward. And from an investment perspective, what we have seen in the past is the phenomenon of paralysis by analysis. So I'm a plan participant, I select a provider, which is a step in the right direction, and then I see 90 different mutual funds across the platform and I freeze. I'm not entirely sure what to do. So from our perspective, making it a little more digestible or a little more approachable as a plan participant, so I'm selecting between 1 or 2 record keepers, and then underneath those providers, only 20 or 30 are funds, and it makes it much easier for them to make that decision moving
And
forward.
you're looking at data points. You're not only just saying this is what you should do and just painting a broad brush. Quarter to quarter, year over year, you're looking at data analytics to make sure that the plan is performing as it should and participants are doing what they should.
Absolutely. I think what's important is not to just pick a set of mutual funds that you feel is in the top decile or top quartile. I think what we want to do and what we work to do with the committees is really evaluate the plan demographics. So a plan with much older demographic as opposed to younger demographic who's going to be a little more aggressive, they're going to have a different set of mutual funds, a different set of target date funds that suit them best. So to your point, on an annual basis, what we really want to do is go in and evaluate where the participants are. When I turn age 65, am I rolling the money out of the plan or am I leaving it in there? And then from there, provide them with the best investment lineup, giving the set demographics.
Right. It's all about moving the needle. Tim Irvin, thank you very much for joining us.
I appreciate the time, Jeff.
And thank you so much for joining us.